talk therapy is good to a point. And then cognitive behavioral therapy is good to a point to understand thoughts and how you can change your thoughts. But for that to stick long term, I think it's kind of the deeper, however you can get to your subconscious. And becoming aware of like how you feel in your body. A lot of my clients, I don't know about yours, but like a lot of my clients have no clue. Understandably. I mean, there's been points I've had no clue also. Like,
how would you
thinks about this? And like, and so that's why in the beginning, that's all we're doing is noticing.
Y'all, I am so excited about the conversation you are about to hear. My guest today is licensed clinical social worker, Sherri Crowley, and she has been known on other podcasts as the walking therapist, which is such a cool thing. She is one of the wisest, interesting, fiercest women that I know. And funny enough, I've actually known her for a long time. Many years ago, she and I met when we were both in New York City, kind of just, running around being ridiculous and having a blast in our 20s. She's just always been somebody that I have admired and I love. And she is an incredible teacher and mental health care worker. She has the highest clinical training and certifications you can have in the social work field and is incredibly good at what she does. She also has a unique perspective on treatment for mental health. And I'm excited to have her come on because she and I really align. And this is going to be another one of those awesome examples of somebody from a different discipline using different language, but essentially saying similar things that we're teaching over here in the mind management, brain management, and thought work field. So I'm just excited because I know she's going to speak to people that maybe don't quite get the wording that I use. And I just love having people who can sort of speak a different language teach some of these things. So I really hope you enjoy this conversation. I had a blast and I can't wait to have Sherri join us another time. So hang on tight. Here comes Sherri Crowley. Enjoy.
I'm Dr. Charlie Hornis, highly anxious people pleaser turned master certified professional life coach. Learning to manage my brain was so life-changing for me that I got certified so that I could teach these incredible evidence-based practices to you. Are you ready for massive change? Let's go.
Sherri Crowley's here, and truly one of the most incredible humans, somebody I've known a long time, wise beyond words. And I had to start by asking you, I saw that you are called the walking therapist. Is that like a thing for you, or was that just on one show? Because that sounds like such a cool thing.
Yeah, it's actually awesome. I love it. It's interesting because a few clients take advantage of it, and most people, I think, just they don't have their mind wrapped around it to know how great it is. So they're like, no. But the few that do, it's amazing. So basically, it is therapy sessions, but walking in the woods or in a park, or just they call it like ecotherapy is the fancy term, and it's basically a very grounding way to do it. It also is interesting because it adds a very different dynamic. Like the rest of my therapy sessions are either online, and so we're staring at each other in the screen like this, or in person. I'm in person in office, in like their typical therapy office. For your listeners, if they know typical therapy, and if you don't, it's like you're sitting across from the person in an office. So, but the walk and talk offers like this different dynamic. It's sometimes people are able to open up more easily sooner, just because you're side to side and you're not like directly looking. It's kind of like if you have kids and in the car, sometimes they talk more, because I think there's something about not directly looking, and the side to side gives a sense of more safety for some people. Two of my kind of expertise / specialties is ADHD and burnout. And so walking and movement is kind of crucial for, or just movement in general is crucial for both of those things.
I love that. I had to jump in with that because I just thought it was so cool. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, what you do, and, because I have you on for a reason and I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. So I'm a therapist, psychotherapist. My licensure is clinical social work. I am a therapist who doesn't believe that long-term talk therapy is a solution that works. I think there is a use for it for some people who maybe never had therapy before. You have to, and obviously there's some talking in every therapy. You have to know what you're dealing with and what's the presenting issues, etc. However, without the mind body piece, the nervous system regulation pieces, which I know you do also with your clients, without those somatic pieces, none of the cognitive behavioral pieces, none of the talking, you can have all the knowledge in the world and that doesn't necessarily translate to change behavior with just talking.
Talk about what is somatic for people that don't know what that is. And then keep going. No, you're good. You're good.
Somatic means body-based.
I think that it's just good to know because so much of what we struggle with, like you said, is nervous system related. We are dysregulated. And so much of what we do is physiological. A lot of our seeming mental health symptomology that, like you and I've talked about, probably isn't necessarily
100% true.
Mental health problems. It feels so awful that we think something's wrong with us, but it's our brain and it's our physiology. So from a mental health perspective, since you're the official person for that, talk to me about that.
I'm an official person. I don't know. I'm the official person.
Yeah. You're a clinically trained person in this field in a totally different way than I am. So I surely want people to hear that, I'm not just talking a bunch of nonsense over here.
No, you are definitely 100% not. And you're an extremely brilliant, educated person as well. Our thoughts cause and connect to emotion. Your emotions are physiological. They're not, you think oh, I'm sad. That's I'm sad about this. And you attach it to whatever story you're attaching it to. And then when I say you're attaching to story, I'm not dismissing what you're attaching it to. I'm just saying it's a thought. You're attaching it to a story, a narrative. There's something that made you sad that usually connects back to something in the past, etc. Regulating your nervous system. For instance, I know we kind of just jumped right into that. What does that mean? So, that means often, just as a very simple thing that I start with all my clients, it means breathing exercises where, I teach all my clients to start the simplest of breathing exercises of breathing in for a count of 4, holding it for a count of 5 or 6, breathing out for a count of 8, as though you're blowing through a straw, like very slowly, and then holding it at the bottom when you're out of breath again for 5 or 6, and then redoing the cycle. And I tell everyone to do that 5 minutes a day. I'm all about starting with the smallest possible thing you can do consistently. So if you can't do 5 minutes a day, then you start with 1 minute a day. If you can't do 1 minute a day, you find you're not doing it, then you start with a deep breath. Over time, what that does is you won't react to the same level as you might have reacted X amount of time ago. You are able to think quicker. The things that happen, the emotions attached, they're in your cells, they're in your nervous system. We try to separate mind and body and spirit at least in our Western society, and they're not separate. That's why people, stress makes people sick because they're not separate.
You remind me of Dr. Robert, I never say his last name right, Sapolsky. He wrote the book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's classic. And he talks about almost every problem that's health related and mind related is because of stress. What I heard you say is the same 5 steps that we talk about with thought work and mind management, which is there's a circumstance that's happening around you, and all circumstances are truly neutral. And then we have thoughts that our brain interprets through our story. And that's the language I heard you say, through our experience, our trauma, or how people talk to us, or how we were raised, all the different things that make us unique. Our biology, like you said, is our story, our biography. And those thoughts create, you said, emotion, feeling, right? And those are things we feel in our body, which is somatic, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. Like, we're saying the same thing here. And then those feelings cause us to do stuff most of the time to feel better. What would you say with your clients? What percentage are people living in such high stress right now?
I'd say the majority. I don't even know the percentage, but it's interesting. You had said something earlier about, is it mental health? Like, how much of this stuff is mental health, and how much of it is the way we're living? It's hard to tease apart in these days because we're all living in such high stress of what's actually a mental health issue and what, like, the anxiety, right? Everyone who doesn't have anxiety, and it's like, do you really have generalized anxiety disorder, or are you really living in a time, and are you living a life where you're overworked and you're not having boundaries around your time, and you there's all these expectations of you that you didn't necessarily agree to, but they're on you, and you are, your kids are overscheduled, and if you have kids, and there's all these, of course you're feeling anxious. Like, is it anxiety, or is it the culture of your life that, and I don't know, for some people it genuinely is anxiety, but for a lot of people, I suspect, as you had said earlier, like, I don't, is it, are you depressed, or do you just, like, are you lacking connection? Because connection, Gabor Mate, his work, he talks a ton about, like, connection being an antidote to depression, to addiction, to, have you just gotten so far away from deep connection with people that you feel depressed? I want to note here that I'm not minimizing anyone's feelings of anxiety or feelings of depression, but in terms of, is it an actual mental health thing versus is it the lifestyle? I'm a big believer in, like, do all the lifestyle changes first. Then if there's still, after you've done these things, and nothing's done one and done, and things are still, like, not any better at all, then I start to think, okay, maybe there is a clinical mental health issue.
Would you talk about, real quick, burnout? Because burnout to me is a dirty word.
I love that.
I hate the word. It's wrong. And I think we're on the same page with that.
Yeah. In what context would you like? What are you?
Well, I argue that burnout is not the reason that people leave jobs or they're miserable or whatever. I argue that burnout is the end of a process of, like you said, what I would call it is losing your purpose, or getting the purpose beat out of you, or having a disappointment because, like you said, there's all this socialization and money and problems in a lot of fields. We're trying to go to school, get in debt, and then be grateful that we make $40,000. And if we have reasonable health insurance, we pay $600 a month for, we should be happy about that. Like, there's so much bullshit. Then we get told, oh, well, you let yourself get burned out. And then it puts the onus on other people. It puts it like, if I say I'm unhappy with all the stuff, socialization and, whatever, toxic work environments, that I'm just hearing more and more hostile and toxic work environments, just more and more of this stuff. And then they say, oh, well, you let yourself get burned out. You didn't have good boundaries. You didn't do, quote, self-care, another bad word. And the truth is, all of these awful things have happened. I've lost my sense of purpose, my excitement for the world, wanting to go into my field and change whatever. And now I'm told I'm burned out. And I just think that's a platitude. It's not true.
I think, so I can't agree more that it's a real structural, like burnout does not happen in a silo. I do think that, I do think there are some pieces, like when I got burned out, I'm just using, this is not an evidence-based, I'm in one anecdotal example. When I got burned out, and I don't have a better word for it, there was a piece that I wasn't able to set boundaries around my time. And some of that was me, and some of that was a huge part, was the structure of where I was working.
Was there expectations you were trying to live up to? And just this socialization.
You didn't do that. Like,
yeah,
I kind of asked, but like, I was worried if I didn't do that, I would get fired. Right.
I heard you just own that. You said, you owned it. You said, but part of this was me. And then you said, but there was this expectation, then I was going to get fired. And that's the whole insidiousness of this shit, is that it convinces us there's something wrong with us, or that we have to, dance like monkeys so we don't get fired.
So I am now in private practice again after many years of not being, and it's taken me, I've been doing this 18 years. It's taken me until like 2 years ago to be able to say, yeah, I want to make a lot of money. What's wrong? Like, why not? I have what I want to, and I don't feel bad about that. But there's still plenty of people, that's not what our work is about. And why? Why should I should burn out and kill myself? Like, I was very sick. I should do that to match what you think should be my life.
When I hear you, I don't have the physiological stuff that you feel when you're in this situation. And the same with you. You don't feel it in your body the way it manifests. I mean, you had just said that you were getting sick. Was that the stress coming out of your body physiologically, or was that something else?
Yeah. Yes. It was definitely all stress related.
Earlier, you said you were overworking, and what did they expect you to overwork to the point of killing yourself?
It was an interesting place. Like, there was the whole culture. That was the culture of the institution as well. Like, It was a place where they've brought out many, many successful people who worked themselves to death. And for some people, that's, I guess, not to death, but literally, but close. And that was fine for many people. I always found it odd that it pervaded into the mental health department, but it did, like in the busy.
I'm sorry. That is too incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I did always find it is incredible. And I always thought that was odd. I mean, when I left there, a new place, they were very excited, and they were getting their own offices. And so I was very excited, and I come in the first day, and they're like, let's go. And the new offices were brand new carpet and brand new chairs, and it was brand new, but it was in the basement. Like, who the fuck puts mental health people in the basement? Like that also. There was no windows. It was absurd. So I do find it the absurdity in all of this. But yes, the expectation was unspoken. Yeah, that you work yourself. That's what everyone at this place does. That's what everyone, that's what you do. That's how to be successful. And so I was getting all kinds of digestive issues. There was like 6 months I wasn't sleeping because I got this digestive issue called laryngopharyngeal reflux. And I was like clearing my throat, it was like chronic cough, clearing your throat. It's like GERD, but it's, I guess acid reflux goes higher into your throat, and it just feels constantly you have to clear your throat. So I'd be clearing my throat all night long, and that would cause it to need to do it more. And it was like so insane. I was like sleeping in a different room than my husband sometimes because otherwise I keep him up. It was like nuts. And then there was like, at one point there was like literally 5 foods I could eat. It was like, and I couldn't eat anything else or this would happen. And it was, I mean, who lives like that? And so that's all inflammation related and et cetera, et cetera. But that was all from like not sleeping and stress. And so the turning point where I had to take a leap, where I was like, okay, was that, I was supposed to give a presentation to one of the graduate student dorms on stress management. My colleagues who were wonderful, I had wonderful colleagues, but they were walking in my office like, hey, Sherri. And I like burst into tears. Like I wasn't functioning well. So how was I going to give a stress management presentation? And, you know, as we talk about it, like, yes, that there was 100% a structural, cultural piece.
We had kind of realized that we were on the same page when we started to talk about the survival mechanism.
Yeah.
Our body response to very human behavior, the disgusting feeling of neurotransmitters, how that can feel like panic attacks when the truth is it's your brain trying to protect you from some jerk yelling at you.
Yeah.
When dude like criticizes our grammar or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Your body can distinguish between what the stressor is that you're getting chased by a tiger, eaten by a bear, or your boss is yelling at you.
But our prefrontal cortex does not understand the difference because it, from my understanding, the prefrontal cortex always hands control to the survival brain because that's what keeps us alive in an instant. So what you said to me was there's so much about this type of work that actually solves problems when you understand it. Because when you understand the symptomology of your body, the physiology, sitting around talking about, I felt like I was in fight or flight or freeze or fawn.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because someone was yelling at you.
Right. You were. Right. You feel like that because you were.
but I'm sitting here telling my therapist, what's wrong with me? Tell me, let me tell you my entire childhood. And it's like, no, your brain thought the dude was going to eat you and it feels yucky.
Yeah.
You know, your neurotransmitters cascade through your body and it's awful and you have to shake it off. I mean, what's the thing about the gazelle? Have you ever watched a gazelle survive a lion attack? And as soon as it gets away, it shakes.
Yeah.
It shakes off the neurotransmitters. And
fascinating.
So anyway, that's kind of what we had been talking about. So does that sort of lead you into your perspective on treating some of the mental health stuff?
You can tone your vagus nerve the same way that
about the vagus nerve. You need to talk about that as often and over and over again as possible because it's so important and people don't understand it. So give us some more info on what exactly you're talking about.
So the vagus nerve runs throughout your entire body and it's it's a long nerve throughout your body, branches into everything. It's in your gut. It's very crucial to your parasympathetic nervous system, to calming. When people are struggling with anxiety or with panic attacks or anything where your fight, flight, or freeze response is kicking off, learning to tone your vagus nerve can be extremely helpful. I also want to know, and I tell my clients this, like a lot of them, I teach them certain exercises or things to start practicing. I encourage people, like after we kind of get a grasp on what this is even about, the nervous system, the fight or flight, the understanding of it, when we start with fixing it, all we start with is noticing, just noticing, like notice in your body. Next time you're feeling anxious, where do you feel it in your body? Do you feel it in your throat? Do you feel it in your stomach? Where do you feel it? And I ask them to just notice, not to do another thing. Like don't try to do anything about it. Just notice. And we do that for a few weeks and then we notice and collaboratively with try try a breathing exercise, try walking, try whatever is meditative for you, or whatever is energy releasing or dopamine creating for you, or what, it depends on what the issue is. So you start noticing, and after you're noticing, then you can start to be aware, because as we were talking about very early, much earlier in this conversation, is your thoughts become, are your emotions. Your emotions set off these physical reactions. And so as you notice, that's the first step in being able to change your thoughts.
I think often, and I see this with a lot of my students, they want to change the behavior first, which I think, I love this because you use entirely different language that's going to speak to different people than my language. And yet I really feel like we're saying the same thing. With my students, people want to change behavior first, right? They want to dive in and change. And like you said, with information, if information fixed everybody, then none of us would need anything, right? We'd all be great. We just read a book and everything's fine. When I see people struggling, and when I struggled, not knowing what fight or flight was, I just knew it felt yucky. The thing that made me the most angry was later when my brain kind of kicked back in. What I didn't know was like my lizard brain was in charge. And then later my prefrontal cortex came back online and I could think again. That's what made me the most angry, because I wasn't aware in the moment. And what I am hearing you say, which really speaks to me, is it's in the moment creating that awareness that will lead to the change, not the other way around. I'm not going to change the behavior. I'm going to become aware of what's happening in my body.
Yes.
And slowly you train your brain, right? And you said neural pathways. You have to reestablish different pathways, right?
Yes. And that's not going to be an immediate thing. And like, yes, and becoming aware of like how you feel in your body. A lot of my clients, I don't know about yours, but like a lot of my clients have no clue. Understandably. I mean, there's been points I've had no clue also. Like,
how would you
thinks about this? And like,
yeah.
And so that's why in the beginning, that's all we're doing is noticing. You don't have to do anything. You've been doing it this other way for 40 years, 50 years, whatever, 30 years, however, I don't know how old people are. You don't have to all of a sudden, and you're not going to be able to all of a sudden. I tell my clients, like, when you're in the middle of a panic attack, I'm giving you, here's some things you can do. Don't try to do breathing exercises if you're in the middle of hyperventilating. It doesn't work. You're past the point. In fact, it probably makes it worse. Don't do that. It's futile. It's silly. I don't say it's silly, but it doesn't make any sense, and don't even bother.
And so many people will tell people to do that. And so let me real talk.
You're already hyperventilating. It's like
you have to go touch something.
Yeah, you need to
do somatic. You have to get up and walk around. You have to move your body to get out.
Exactly. The other thing I'd say is I am giving you these tools, and the chances are nobody in the middle of a panic attack is like, oh, let me pull out my tools. So maybe 50% of the time, maybe 30% of the time, maybe 10% of the time, I can notice what I'm like, or even just notice just after the fact when my prefrontal cortex comes back online. Like maybe then I can notice, oh, wow, I just felt really shaky, or my stomach was feeling really, I couldn't think about it in that moment, but that's how I would, and it's just starting with notice. That's like my key to just starting with noticing, because then you can also start to notice your thoughts. After you start to notice your physical feelings, you can start to later on notice your thoughts. Oh, I was thinking I'm going to end up, I didn't pass my test, and I was thinking I'm going to end up alone with 100 cats. And of course that causes anxiety, of course, you can start.
Of course that's going to make you feel like shit. If that's what you're thinking in the moment, why would you change your thought,
Right.
But it's like I say, it has to be true and believable.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I don't know if any of this was helpful.
No, it was great. And listen, I know you have to run, but the only thing I'm going to close with what you're saying is we all know with this training that the reason those feelings are what they are is because of dopamine.
Yes.
Released in our brain. It's like, no, there's nothing wrong with you for getting fuzzy because the kid set you off and you're not thinking about it in the moment. It's because your brain felt like there was some kind of threat. Dopamine is the chemical that is aware of the threat because it's the one that creates the neural pathways towards safety or towards danger. And so now your brain thinks you're in danger. I just wanted to tie it back into the work that you do, which is around, therapy and the physiology of our bodies. Any way that we can find Sherri, I'm going to put in the show notes. So she'll send me all of her links and everything. And I'm just so glad you're here. And I hope you'll come back and talk to us because we have way too much fun. And
we do.
We didn't even get into you teaching us even like in-depth stuff. So yeah, there has to be a part 2.
Yes, this was a blast. And thank you so much for having me. It's so awesome to catch up and get to do this with you.